Hello and welcome to Lancast. I'm your host, Danny Martin, with my co-host, Josh Gerber here. What are we going to talk about today? Well, yay, I got published my letter today, my letter about voting for Eric Beezer, who's running for state rep in the 96th precinct of Pennsylvania. And if you're listening to this podcast for first time, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, because we're trying to be even-handed here, but I am supporting Eric because I've talked to him and I like his policies. And I'm going to read you from the letter to start off the show. But we're going to talk about other things too. You good with that, Josh?
Sounds good to me. Let's get it rolling.
So LNP printed my letter I submitted almost 3 weeks ago. It's called Beezer Advocates for Pennsylvania Farmers. And here's the text. After speaking to Eric Beezer, a Republican running for state representative in the 96th legislative district, I'm excited to vote for him. But I've noticed that LNP/Lancaster Online has repeatedly used the reductive terms pro-pot candidate or pro-marijuana candidate when describing him. This is a wholly unnuanced representation of his platform. If LNP/Lancaster Online wanted to be more accurate with two-word descriptions of candidates, it would be better served to call Beezer pro-farmer or pro-Pennsylvania. Medical marijuana has been legal here since 2016. The problem is that the majority of the industry is outsourced, using cannabis grown out of state. Beezer is working to reverse that and to empower Pennsylvania farmers to grow the crop. Redirecting the industry to a buy local model will reap tremendous benefits for Pennsylvania agriculture and our state economy. Furthermore, I am convinced that Beezer's anti-prohibition stance won't lead to widespread recreational use. And this is just one of his proposals, but one that will help in other areas, such as lowering taxes and conserving the environment. I encourage voters, whether party-affiliated or independent, to visit votebeezer.com and read more about Eric's platform. You will find many similarly sensible ideas and positions. Can you imagine LNP reducing Eric's opponent, Nikki Rivera, to party-appointed candidate or anti-democratic candidate, since she did decline to challenge 34-year incumbent Mike Sturla in her party's primary, yet had her candidacy rubber-stamped by party elites in a matter of days after Sturla decided not to run for re-election? Since we're being told democracy is on the ballot, I can only imagine where that would lead readers. Signed, Daniel Martin, Manheim Township. Anyway, I'm glad they finally published that. I give LNP credit for they didn't change any of my words this time. They did take 3 weeks to publish it, and in that time, I counted 4 different letters in favor of his opponent. But I'm not gonna try to infer any motive there. You have anything to add, Josh?
What a great letter that was. That's
thank you.
Good.
I appreciate it.
It's very good. No, I think if we would grow more local and sell local, that would definitely help the economy better, especially, considering the hemp market that's already flourishing in Lancaster County. I think talking to Beezer personally, he definitely cares about that issue, and he should, and we should also really care about our farmers, especially here in Lancaster County, where I think we're the number one county in the country, if I remember right, for farmland preservation. Yes. And that's big. That's big. We protect our farmers and we keep, historical farmland safe and secure from development. And
absolutely,
to me, that's very important, especially to the Democrat side, considering they typically are the ones that want to continue to go green and keep the air clean and the water clean and our environment clean, and you can't get any cleaner than farms, because pollutants really come from cities, from metropolitan areas, not from farms. So I think he's a great middle of the road candidate for the district, and a lot like how a lot of conservatives said that Sturla was kind of a moderate, and it wasn't too far left or too far right. So I think Beezer would be a great replacement for Mike, considering the purple district that the 96th is in.
Yeah, and we hope to hear from Eric directly in a future episode. Hopefully, maybe the next one sometime in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that if you live in the 96. Or even if you don't live in the 96, I mean, I think he's a good model candidate. Some of the other districts, maybe some of the same issues are coming up. But yeah, like you just said, that was really well put, Josh. I mean, farmland and agriculture are so huge to Pennsylvania. We should be talking about this.
And it should be something that both parties really care about if we want to keep our environment clean. It is a fact that metropolitan cities and cities in general pollute more than farms do, obviously. So if we want to keep our water clean, we want to keep our environment clean, we should be pro-farmer.
Absolutely. Great. Let's move on to national issues. So that was our local portion of the show. If you're just listening to this for the first time, we cover local and national, but state rep is kind of a big deal. Let's just say there's more than one race being run right now, and that's not just about the presidency. But let's talk about national issues for a second. But yeah, big news. There a couple of things have happened since our last episode. I mean, the Democrats had their convention, and right after that, RFK dropped. Well, he didn't officially drop out, but he suspended his campaign and endorsed Trump. I think that's kind of a big deal. And you have a lot to say to that. I'll let you go first.
I have a lot to say, but first, I was wrong. It wasn't Michelle Obama. I'm sorry. I was wrong.
Your predictions were wrong.
My prediction was wrong, sadly. That would have been very exciting.
I'm not going to Vegas with you ever.
Yeah, that would have been absolutely insane. But, I mean, I could have seen it happening, considering all the craziness that has happened this year alone. I mean, don't even talk about 2020 and the craziness. That would have been right up our alley for 2024 to have Michelle Obama somehow get in as the Democrat candidate. But that didn't happen. That's fine. Now, what I really am excited to talk about is RFK dropping out of 10 battleground states and endorsing Trump. And I'm not excited about it because he was a Democrat, and it's always nice, I guess. They always like to do this thing where the opposing side's party member endorses the opposite party. Like, I don't think that's nearly as important as what RFK is going to bring to MAGA. I've had critiques of MAGA, but I'm just gonna say that MAGA needs RFK for sure. I think he is intelligent. I think that he cares about our children's health, and he cares about our nation's health and well-being, and he's not nearly as broad speaking as Trump is. He's much more precise in what he talks about, and I think that is a big benefit to the MAGA movement. Well, we actually are going to have someone involved campaigning with Trump that is pinpoint accurate and speaks eloquently and really, really cares and has passion about what he believes in. And I'm just so thrilled that RFK did what he did. And I also hope success in the other 40 states that, the independent party gets 5%. And that might sound weird being a Republican committee man, but I think another legitimate party in this country is long overdue, and more voices in the room make us all smarter and makes us think more. So I'm all for it. And I hope he gets the 5%. And I hope Trump wins, and I hope RFK gets in his administration. And I also just kind of want to go on a personal level. A few months ago, prior to the assassination attempt on Trump, I was ridiculed privately by conservatives for saying that I would at least consider voting for RFK. And I forgive them, because now I know they're all about him. I understand I was ahead of the curve. That's fine. That's fine, everyone. It's okay. But I just hope that that MAGA gets behind MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. I hope I start seeing a whole bunch of MAHA signs around Lancaster County, and we talk about what's really important, and that is the health of our children, the health of our of the next generation of Lancaster people. I hope more people become more skeptical about not just what they eat, but what also is told to put in our children's bodies at a young age, whether it's the Hep B vaccine at around 12 to 24 hours of birth, or to the Tdap shots or the measles, mumps, rubella shots. I'm not anti-vaxxer by any means. My kids have most of their vaccines, but I do think that there is a discussion that must be had about our vaccine schedule. And RFK being in with MAGA and being in with Trump hopefully will give that validity. And I again, the more voices that you have in the room, the smarter we all get. So I am over the moon happy that RFK is now working with Trump.
Yeah, and I'm happy too. I mean, there's so many different things he's bringing to this campaign. If you get into the issues, like we were talking about the environment a little while before regarding local issues, and he has a record as an environmental lawyer.
Absolutely, I should have mentioned that.
Right, and I've seen clips of him speaking at a recent Trump rally, and he's talking about the environment, and everyone's cheering him on. Republicans have this image like we don't care about the environment, and it's totally not true.
The dirty capitalists, right?
Right. I mean, it's one thing to care about the environment. It's another to support policies which don't make sense. And I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, like about green policies. Like, are they really green? Are they really helping the environment? But we'll have to do another episode about that. So the environment was one, but that was in my mind, that was a segue about how I got into vaccines, because I think during his time as an environmental lawyer, he met with some moms who were telling them about their kids who were vaccine injured, I think.
Yeah, he met with hundreds of mothers.
Right.
Once mothers found out that there was a Kennedy,
right.
Once mothers found out that there was a Kennedy that would at least hear them out, mothers just started swarming him at almost every event he went to, about like the vaccine injuries that their kids had gotten, or their theories that their child were perfectly fine, and then they got a vaccine and they weren't fine. And again, I'm not an expert. Danny's not an expert.
Right.
RFK is not quote unquote considered an expert at all. But the saddest thing about vaccines in America and general health in America is that it's all one-sided. So it takes people who are quote unquote not experts to even hear out these complaints and even hear out people's grievances about our medical field. If more experts would not be so one-sided, there wouldn't be a need for RFK to speak about these things. There'd be experts to speak about it. So my hope, again, is that this becomes more mainstream and it forces the ivory tower experts and big pharma to explain themselves. And that's just my hope, that like we actually have an open conversation about big pharma and big food and
yes.
All that in general.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm going to segue into free speech in a minute on that topic, but yeah, I'm not an expert on vaccines or medicine or anything, but I did read RFK's book, or at least most of the 900 pages, The Real Anthony Fauci, and I highly recommend it. You don't have to agree with everything in there. I mean, yeah, there's some stuff I didn't agree with in there. Like, I think he talks about poppers and the AIDS crisis, and I'm not as well versed in that, but I know that some people disagree with that. It's kind of an out there theory. But what I liked about this book is it gave a voice to people during the pandemic who knew there was something fishy going on with Fauci, and I mean, he calls him out on it. And I don't need to get into the specifics now, but Yeah, Fauci is not a good person, is not somebody who should be lionized. And if you don't believe me, I mean, you read the book if you disagree.
Right. And let me just interject that the book that he wrote, The Real Anthony Fauci, if there was a shred of anything in there that was wrong or inaccurate, Fauci would have already sued him for defamation when that book came out. And Fauci has not sued him once. Right. And it would have been so easy to sue for defamation, especially in the current legal climate that we're in right now. It's very popular to sue people for defamation and win. So it's telling that Fauci has not done that to such a high-profile person like a Kennedy, and such a high-profile book, especially high-profile since COVID-19 happened.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to segue into censorship and free speech. I mean, I had a hard time getting people to read this book, and some people would have a very visceral reaction if you mention RFK, or, you know, if anyone dared said anything bad about Fauci. And LMP would never publish any of my letters, as I mentioned before, during COVID, if I dared to question any of the narratives. I mean, especially what I want to ask, and if you're a Democrat out there listening, like, why do you hate RFK so much? Because, I mean, look at how your party has treated him. He was denied Secret Service protection until Trump himself got shot, and Trump suggested, hey, maybe he should get some protection. And that was when they gave it to him. Now that he's suspended his campaign, they've taken it away again. And they're also suing him, I think, to keep him on the ballot.
Oh, yeah. Can I talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in PA, they're actually like the day he dropped out, the Democrat Party was suing him to get him off the ballot, and then he made the announcement in Arizona, and now the Pennsylvania Democrat Party is suing him in Harrisburg to keep him on the ballot.
Right. Just like
how,
they did.
How clear can you get? It's just absolutely repulsive, and the party of democracy is not acting very democratic at all.
Right. Like I had an online exchange in social media last week with, a Harris voter, and it was very disparaging against RFK. And I posted a link to the Nicole Shanahan interview with Dave Smith, and I said, great. Hey, I wasn't an RFK voter myself, but you might want to listen to this interview. It's actually really good. And he kind of just struck it down. He's like, no, she's a Trump supporter now. So
she absolutely is not a Trump supporter.
Exactly.
She hasn't endorsed him.
Right.
I think the most that she said is that she said RFK will be working with Trump and I'll be like doing my thing. I think is basically what she was saying. And she's going to be using, her Google money, the money she got, from her divorce from the owner of Google, or CEO of Google. She's using her money and kind of doing what Elon Musk did, which was like not giving money to Trump, but like giving money to rural and metro areas for voting support, poll support.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just want to have a conversation. Like, what do you support what the Democratic Party is doing to RFK? Like the lawfare, the forcing him to spend millions in legal fees to stay on the ballot, and now to come off the ballot in certain cases. Like it seems so underhanded. And it's also right. You don't want to hear him speak. You don't want to hear his running mate speak. I mean, it leaves me the impression that Democrats support suppressing free speech. And I would love for a Democrat to come on our show and say, no, I don't approve of any of that, but I'm voting for Harris because this is what I like about her policies. I mean, that's great. That's fine. I'm not against that. I don't begrudge anyone. I've said before, vote how you want. But let's not pretend that this, I call it evil, just what they're doing to him.
Well, also the Democrat Party is supposed to be very pro green energy, very pro keeping the environment clean, and he has, I would say, done the most out of any American to have clean water and clean air, and winning the lawsuits for the people who sued Monsanto's and Roundup, and getting those people compensated for what they experienced with getting cancer and lymphoma and all the sicknesses that they got due to using pesticides. I mean, you can't. The Democrat Party is literally missing out on a man who, for like his entire like legal life, has fought like big corporations polluting the water, polluting the air, and polluting human beings, and they want nothing to do with him.
Right.
He extended an olive branch to Kamala Harris to suspend his campaign, and if he could be involved in the Harris administration, and she didn't even reply back.
Right.
So that kind of tells you the difference between Trump and Kamala. Trump right now is creating something very special.
Absolutely.
I mean, from Elon to Vivek Ramaswamy to Tulsi Gabbard to RFK to multiple Hollywood actors.
It's a coalition of former Democrats.
This is the coalition that Obama wished he had.
Right.
I mean, this. Everyone talks about that 2008 coalition that Obama got to beat Hillary Clinton in the primaries. I mean, this is something different. This is bigger than what Obama could have ever dreamed to have had in 2008, and it's very impressive. And I'm very happy to see, a very staunched, hardcore New York City real estate guy being like, all right, open tent. Anyone that is on the side of common sense, anyone that's on the side of freedom, and anyone that wants to do good for our country, come on in. Right.
And I've heard some people refer to what he's done as kind of falling in line. Like if somebody who's a third party candidate, drops out and kind of endorses one of the two major parties, that sometimes they get accused of, they're falling in line, they're selling out for a job. And that's totally not what he's doing, because, falling in line would have been if he had just endorsed the Democratic candidate, because he was a Democrat, his whole family was. What he's doing now is incredibly brave. He's going against his entire family and probably making a lot of enemies. And it's, what is he benefiting from it? He's doing for the country something that's, not very popular in his private circles.
Absolutely.
So
it's one of the bravest things we've probably seen in a while.
I agree.
He is practically American royalty. This is the son of Bobby Kennedy and the nephew of John F. Kennedy. You can't get any more American royalty than that.
Yeah.
And for him to do what he's done, it's incredible.
It's kind of a historic moment. So I wanted to segue a little bit into, because we're talking a little bit about censorship and free speech. The other thing that I think is a big story from the last couple of weeks was Mark Zuckerberg. He apologized for Facebook's role in COVID-era censorship and also censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story and suppressing that so that the Democrats could just claim it was Russian disinformation, which it wasn't. It was the real deal. So I've been asking Democrats all week, like, do you think your party should also apologize for having pushed those things, that censorship? Because I don't think the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of censorship and suppressing free speech. So why would you want people to think that? I don't know. Is it, or does it make you look weak because you apologize? Like, I don't think it makes Zuckerberg look weak. I think it makes me like him more. Anyway, anything to say about that?
Zuckerberg, I don't know. I guess it's good that he's apologizing and he's like admitting like they did wrong. As far as the Democrats, they're not going to apologize for anything. They never do. And I don't really want their apology because it wouldn't have mean anything anyways. I don't think Zuckerberg's apology really means very much to him anyways. He just sees the writing on the wall.
Sure, it's a political move.
Yeah, it's a political move. But, I will say that the 2020 Zuckerberg, he was probably very, very worried that his platform was going to be taken down if they didn't do what the government told them to do, and which is completely against the Constitution.
Right.
But he felt like he had to do what he had to do. And I think a lot of Americans were put in that situation in 2020. It's almost here's the thing. Looking back at 2020, like, I have my entire family back home in Missouri got the COVID vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
It saddens me that they did. It saddens me like to a great deal that they didn't at least consider what I was trying to tell them. But I got it. My mom was facing possibly getting fired, and she was the breadwinner. And when it came to Zuckerberg, the government was probably like, "You do this or else. Do this or you're going to lose Title 230 or not Title 230. What is it? Anyways, the exemptions that social media companies get is that they're not responsible for anything that someone says on their platform, and that would have been taken away. I'm sure that was dangled as something that they would lose if Zuckerberg didn't comply with what the government wanted, and same with Twitter at the time. So it's almost like go and sit in their position, sit in the millions of Americans who were risked of losing their job and their livelihood if they didn't take the vaccine. You'd be hard pressed to find many people who are just like, all right, I'm gonna lose my job. I'm not gonna take it, and I'm gonna bite the bullet. More often than not, people took the jab and they kept their job and they kept their livelihoods. So it's almost like, if anything, it's possible that Zuckerberg either sees the evil and the loss of free speech and the loss of bodily autonomy, or he's just protecting himself for possibly a Trump victory.
Yeah, it's probably the latter. We're cynical on this.
I'm being nice, okay? I'm just trying to again. We're trying to appeal we want to appeal to all sides.
Yeah, I just want to make a clarification since you mentioned 2020. The Hunter Biden laptop news suppression happened in 2020, right before the election. But the vaccine mandates you just talked about, I mean, they were largely made possible as one of the byproducts of the censorship we just talked about, but they started in 2021, which is why I put both things on the Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
I guess my point in bringing this up is that, I mean, free speech is on the ballot to some extent. I mean, if you look at the way Democrats have treated their opponents, like the Lawfare against Trump and, kind of doing the same thing against RFK, maybe not prosecuting, but forcing him to spend millions in lawsuits just so he can stay on the ballot or get off the ballot. And my point is, for the last, 8 years, I mean, we've had things like Russiagate. We've had censorship, COVID-era censorship, as we just mentioned, Hunter Biden laptop. And my point is, I really think, if Democrats want to win this election, they should do a little more. They should concede a little more to the idea of free speech is on the ballot. Like, they should stand up and say, no, we don't support censorship. These things were bad. I mean, do you think that's reasonable, Josh? I'm trying to be even-handed here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they should definitely embrace free speech because that used to be their hallmark.
Exactly.
I mean, weren't they the people who started the ACLU?
Right.
I mean, they were standing up for neo-Nazis.
Yeah, and that's why I meet a lot of, classical liberals online who say this is what liberalism used to be about, but the parties have flipped. I hear that all the time, at least the people I follow and that I trust. And I agree with them. This is not my parents' liberalism. My parents were Democrats until the Clinton administration. And I'm sure this resembles nothing of the liberalism of the 60s. The parties have flipped. And now we have RFK on the Republican side. So I think that just kind of validates that theory.
A friend of mine who's a state rep said that if JFK was alive today, he'd be a Republican.
I totally 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. We're getting kicked out of our studio. I hear the truck driving in.
There's been an inversion now where the Republican Party has become the party of the common man, of working people, of the middle class. And The Democratic Party has become the party of Wall Street, of the military-industrial complex, of big pharma, big agriculture, big tech, the big banking systems, and all of what Donald Trump calls the deep state, which is this web of financial interests that is not necessarily a little conspiracy, but it's a conspiracy of self-interest that functions together in tandem to shift wealth upward, to clamp down totalitarian controls, and to transform this country from the world's exemplary democracy into a corporate kleptocracy and a very, very oppressive oligarchical system, the kind of system that we fought a revolution to overthrow in 1776.
Wow. Bless you for saying that.
If you would like to be a guest on Lancast or contact us for any reason, send an email to lancastAmericaFirst@gmail.com. That's Lancast with 2 C's, AmericaFirst@gmail.com. Thank you.